Welcome to the pocket. My name is Scooter, and here for you guys today. I got my Week 14 preview video for the Giants game. They're taking on the Saints at home. But before we get into the game itself, there is some Giants news that I want to acknowledge um, in regards to offseason moves, quarterback, and whatnot. I've heard some rumors that the Giants might want to trade for Cousins. I just want to say that's got to be a joke, right? I mean, Kirk, I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback, right? But just at this point in his career, he just signed a massive deal, an extension. The Giants are already going to owe Daniel Jones a bunch of, dead money that they guaranteed him in his contract. And then you want to trade for another quarterback and absorb that contract. What are we talking about here? All right. Like, the whole idea of us trading for even like a guy like Stafford was that we could compete with him. I don't even think that would be the case if we had Kirk or Stafford, right? You look at what Stafford's doing even with Cup and Puka. The lack of structure surrounding the rest of the offense and the rest of the team has been holding him and McVay back quite a bit. So I don't think trading for a quarterback and especially a guy like Cousins, like what are we talking about here, people? But anyway, back to the game. The Giants are taking on the Saints. The Saints are 4-8 this year. This season, they've had one of the most interesting seasons I've seen in a long time. Now, there are reasons for it, but early on in the year, they won both games, scoring 47 and 44 points. Uh, First game was against the Panthers, 47-10. Second game was against the Cowboys, 44-19. And then, they started to have some injuries stack up on the offensive line. They played the Eagles the following week, and the offense was not nearly as good. And they lost 15-12 by like great fourth quarter by Saquon Barkley that allowed the Eagles to win. They kept it pushing, but then eventually Derek Carr got injured, and they ended up starting Spencer Rattler, who's got some potential and he's got a skill set that you can develop and work with a young QB. But for this being his rookie year, not a great situation for him to be starting. I'm pretty sure he was like a fifth round pick, so not ideal. They had a rough middle stretch of the season. Lost 51-27 to the Saints. Lost 30. Yeah, and he got hurt in the Chiefs game, by the way. But then the games that followed, 51-27 to the Bucks. They lost 33-10 to the Broncos. They lost to the Chargers 26-8. And then they lost to the Panthers when Derek Carr finally, I believe he finally was back in this game, and they lost 22-23. What happened after that was they played the Falcons. They won by a field goal, 17-20. They destroyed the Saints with Marquez Valdes-Scantling and his connection with Derek Carr. These deep shots have just been there for them all year. It's pretty remarkable. And then they lost to the Rams last week, 21-14 in a pretty competitive game that was close for pretty much its entirety. But when we look at this Saints team, what we can see is that, yeah, they had a lot of potential when they were healthy, but when they got some injuries at some key positions, they haven't been able to be a consistent team since. So for the rest of the year, they got us, the Giants, they got the Commanders, Packers, Raiders, and Buccaneers. So that's, 3 tough games and then 2 games they should win. But regardless, I hope that describes how the Saints season has gone so far for them. It's been very interesting to see like a team score 40 points 2 weeks in a row, look like a sure top 10 team, and then just fall apart so easily. And next, I want to get into the team stats. I'm not going to get into the team stats for the Giants. We know the offense is terrible. The defense has terrible run defense, and even the pass rush isn't that good anymore. But for the Saints, I also want to acknowledge that there was a change at quarterback, right? They were starting Spencer Rattler at a certain point in time. So especially some of the offensive team stats may not be reflective of perhaps who exactly they are right now. But they do still have injuries to guys like Olave, Shaheed, right? So their offense still continues to be a little bit nerfed, right, compared to what we've seen. But starting things off, we're going to look at the passing offense, and for this, I'm going to look at the yards per attempt, right? So I would say passing yards, right, isn't always the best indicator. I mean, touchdowns is pretty good, right? But I feel like yards and touchdowns are a bit more of a team stat. Whereas yards per attempt, while it is a style thing, like if you're like the Ravens and you lead the NFL in yards per attempt passing, that's because you're doing a lot of deep play action stuff, right? So the shots you are taking when you pass the ball are going to be deep down the field. You're trying to, throw it over their head. But meanwhile, even though the Ravens are that high in, yards per attempt, they are near the bottom third of the league in attempts, right? So I just wanted to acknowledge that before I give you the team stats. And they are middle of the pack when it comes to yards per attempt passing. I mean, they started off very hot, but now they're at 7.1, which puts them right about, like I said, down the middle of the league. So their passing offense is more or less average, right? But we know this Saints team, and we know that that's not really their forte. Their forte is running the ball. And for the same reason, this is even more like you don't want to look at just rush yards and touchdowns. That's a team stat, right? But the yards per carry, yeah, sure, it's also a team stat, but it really does show like on just one run play, are you better? Like how much better are you than the rest of the league? And you look at the top here, you got the Ravens, you got the Eagles, and you got the Cardinals, the Buccaneers, and the Commanders, right? All these teams either have a collection of running backs that they can rotate, keep them fresh, a good offensive line, or they also have like a mobile quarterback that really boosts the yards per carry. And then you got teams like the 49ers, Packers, Lions, and then there they are, the Saints. So that would be 7, 8, 9, 10 in yards per carry with 4.6 yards per carry. We know Alvin Kamara is a beast, even at this stage in his career. And even though the Saints aren't really an explosive offense, he is someone you have to look out for. And I'll make note of it later with Taysom Hill, but he's not going to play in this game, so I expect a lot of red zone usage out of Kamara as well. And for fantasy, you can look for him to have a big game. I would expect at least 24, 25 points out of him. Because, like I said, this doesn't even factor in the receiving game, and he's a monster when it comes to that. Now, when we look at the defense for the Saints, I'm going to do the same thing, go yards per attempt, passing allowed, yards per attempt, rushing allowed. And the Saints are near the top in yards per attempt allowed passing at 7.6 yards per attempt. So that's all right. And like I said, this is the whole season, right? This doesn't really factor in that over the past couple weeks, they've been playing without Marshawn Lattimore. They traded him away. So they're probably even worse than this indicates, which means they're probably one of the worst pass defenses in the league, which is very, very interesting, right? Because this defense, I feel like sometimes it really shows up. I mean, like you look at, say, yeah, I get it's the Browns, right? They hold them to 14. They held the Rams to 21, the Falcons to 17. Um, yeah, so this is pretty much all those games where Derek Carr was back. Their defense actually hasn't really looked too bad, but that's why it kind of surprises me. I would probably, look and say, all right, they let up 33 points to the Broncos. They let up 51 to the Buccaneers, right? So that might be inflating it slightly, but honestly, those are games that did happen, right? That did happen to them. So you have to consider it as a possibility. So I would say the yards per attempt is, more or less pretty indicative of what they have done. But yes, they did trade Marshawn Lattimore away. And then their run defense, I actually was pretty shocked by this one. I mean, I thought their run defense over the past couple of years was supposed to be good, right? And I knew they fell off a little bit, but man, they are second to last in the NFL in yards per carry allowed to running backs at 5 yards per carry and 15 rushing touchdowns allowed. I mean, how do you even let that like get there with the players that they have on their defense? I don't know. Probably just because they were getting blown out in those two games, right? Bucky Irving, Rashad White probably had like 3 combined touchdowns. Oh yeah, and that was the Sean Tucker game as well. So could be a little inflated with the touchdowns, but yeah, you know who's first in most yards per carry allowed? It's the Giants, 5.1 yards per carry allowed, and we've allowed about 118 more rushing yards on 20 more attempts. So I guess you can expect that. But yeah, they have a bad run defense, really bad, and then their pass defense is not good. So it looks like their defense really isn't like I don't know if these last 4 games are they've made some adjustments or something. But let's talk about what this all really means for the Giants, and that's that we are going against a defense that is vulnerable. They can be exposed, and for the Giants offense to actually have a chance in any game to score points, you have to be going against a bad defense. And then for the defense, the Giants defense is a bad matchup, right? Because the Giants are really bad at run defense, and the Saints like to run the ball and run play action and all those sorts of things. And that's the sort of way that you can tear up this Giants defense. So bad matchup for the Giants defense. For the Giants offense, I guess it's a good matchup, but is it ever really a good matchup if we're talking about the Giants offense? But that's enough about the team stats. I think that gives you an idea of who the Saints are. Now let's talk real quick about the injury report. Starting with the Saints, as I mentioned before, Taysom Hill is out with a knee injury. He was not participating all week. I'm pretty sure he's done for the year. The Saints guard, Nick Saldiveri. I don't know how to say that, but he's the guard. He did not participate all week. He's out. Bub Means, who was playing in for Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed while they've been injured, along with Marcus Valdez-Scantling, who's been out there. He's out. He's not going to play. He did not participate Thursday or Friday. And then when it comes to guys who are questionable, they have two on the list. Tanoa Passingnaga. I don't know how to say his name. Man, this Saints player has got some crazy names. But he's got an Achilles injury and he's questionable. But he was a full participant all week, so I would expect to see him. And then what's this? Kendre Miller? He's got a hamstring, right? But he was a full participant all week, but he's still questionable. Man, this guy never gets on the field. It's really too bad because he's a pretty talented running back. But it's too bad for him and too bad for the Saints. But you know what's even worse? The Giants injury report. This is getting to the point where it's like last year. We're starting a practice squad. I mean, Deonte Banks is out. Nacho is out. Bobby Okereke is out. Doubtful, Jermaine Illuminor with a quad. And then we also have DJ Davidson, doubtful with a shoulder. So that's, I don't know, our D tackle 2 and 3. And then our starting right tackle is probably going to miss. And then our middle linebacker and our number one corner, on top of everything we've already had. I mean, Kayvon's back, but we lost Theo Johnson and we lost Dexter Lawrence, man. So this run defense is going to be even worse. This pass defense is not going to be good. Holy smokes. And then questionable, Evan Neal. Wow, you were in there for like 2 weeks and now you're already questionable, dude. Like, this is why even if he was playing okay like the past 2 weeks, like we just got to move on from him because even if he does have hope, he's got injury issues. Deontay Johnson, the linebacker, has an ankle and he's questionable. Jordan Riley, that's our fourth defensive tackle right there, questionable with a knee, limited participant all week. Chris Hubbard, our left tackle replacement for Andrew Thomas, is questionable with a knee. Andrew Phillips with a shoulder is questionable. None of these guys, Hubbard or Phillips, have participated this week. Cordell Flock, questionable with a quad and a knee, did not participate. And then most importantly, Malik Neighbors had a groin injury and he's questionable. He was limited on Thursday and did not participate Friday. Malik Neighbors' game status is dependent on an MRI that he's received that is going to tell them and the medical staff whether or not this type of injury is safe for him to play with or not. So we're going to see what happens there. I would really love, obviously, to see Malik out there. I got him in fantasy, right, as a Giants fan too. You love seeing our first-round draft pick out there and go ball out, but looks like we might not have him. So that's really unfortunate. So, yeah, it's not really looking too hot for the Giants. Vegas is thinking the same thing, except they're a little more generous than I probably would be. They're saying New Orleans -4.5, the over-under at 41. I would say, based off of how I described the Saints defense and the Giants defense, I think that over-under is looking less and less accurate. I think it should be higher. Me personally, based off this Vegas take of like 25-20, I actually have, I'm going to change my take, actually, just ever so slightly. I made an upload where I posted the Giants Saints and the money line picks, and I took the Saints to win 23-17. I am actually going to add a field goal to both teams. I think both teams are going to be able to move the ball more and score more touchdowns. So I actually no. I'm going to go all the way up. I'm going to say Saints win 28 to let's say 21 or 21. 28-21. So they win by a full touchdown, but that's going to be like the Giants are down 28-14 and score a garbage time touchdown. So that's my take, and I kind of already been giving you my extended thoughts on why I think this is the way the game is going to play out. The Giants defense is decimated at this point. I mean, we have Kayvon and Burns, but that's pretty much it. Like, our 3 starting corners are going to be out, is what it looks like. Our best player on defense is out. Our middle linebacker is out. One of our other best players on defense. Our second, third, and fourth defensive tackle are injured. We just signed like a practice squad guy. And like I said, yeah, the defense is just so shot. And then even though the Giants' offense looks better with Drew Lock, and the Saints' defense has proven to not be very good at either stopping the run, so Tracy might have a good game, and their pass defense might be bad enough for Drew Lock to hit a deep shot or two, but I just don't think the Giants have the stability on offense to keep up like the Saints will, because they're gonna have Derek Carr. They got this good play calling. They're way healthier than we are. So that's my thoughts. That's my reasoning. Saints 28-21. Pick the over and the Saints spread, and obviously their money line. So that's going to be all for this video. Thank you guys all so much for watching until the very end. Leave a like to support the channel, and tell me in the comments if you have anything to say about this game. Tell me in the comments if you think I'm wrong about something. Do you think the under is actually going to hit? Should I go under 41? Should I have stuck with 23-17? I don't know. We'll see. And if you aren't already, please subscribe to the channel. It's a great way to support, but you'll also never miss an upload if you hit that notification bell. So this is my second video today, and it's time for me to relax and watch some football tomorrow. Once again, thank you all for watching. Peace out.